Hi, everybody. So, Crystal and I are here together. Crystal is helping me with a lot of projects, and I'm really grateful for that. And we're going to be doing Earth's true history today. And I know you had one question, Crystal, that was about the universe. So, maybe we should talk about how the universe was actually created first, just for like a general, this is how it happened. So if you think of the universe or God or the oneness or whatever you want to call it, if you think of it as a great sea, so imagine this is the sea, and in that sea, there was basically one being just kind of hanging out with themselves. So they decided they wanted to have experience, and to do that, they needed to create other beings from themselves. And they did that. And so two beings came out of that sea of consciousness. And those two beings were the first creator beings. So their biggest task was to create experiences. And that's how the universe started. And from those two beings, everything else was created. So they had many, many children who were also creator beings, and they had many different, diverse kinds of beings that were created. And basically, that's like how everything, the multiverse, was created. And it's kind of beyond human comprehension how it really works because it's so intricate, but yet so vast.
Mhm.
So I just want to bring that up at the beginning.
Just some background.
Yeah. So what's the first question?
When was Earth created?
So Earth wasn't created with time. So we're going to have to let go of time. Earth was created in response to the Orion Wars, but also time doesn't exist. So if you think about it, Earth would have been created before that, but you can just like things have been reset here, you can reset within the universe. So you can go back, just like someone is having a dream that's like, what do they call that? Dream walking or not astral projection, but when you're in a dream and you reset the ending. And I don't know, I can't remember what that's called, but I've done it many times. And basically, you just start over. So, Earth was the start over. And it was like, well, this Orion War stuff was horrible. We're going to start over and we're going to create a planet where beings can come together and communicate. Now, the same people that were kind of creating a lot of the polarity within the Orion Wars themselves and really drove that to a point of just horrific polarity. They're the ones who pulled Earth into the 3D. So that's a big deal.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what's the next question?
Why was Earth created?
Okay. So Earth was created for communication. And I think I've talked about that a lot, but Earth was created so that we could learn how to communicate with each other. And now at this point, we're going back to that original purpose of Earth, but it's going to be a lot easier because we're not in a polarized universe anymore.
Okay. Who created Earth?
So the being that is the soul of Earth, had a huge part in its own creation because, that's her body. And then a lot of the beings that, there was the creator beings. So the two creator beings had a huge input with Earth. Pleiadians had a lot to do with a lot of the flora and fauna. They were helping with that. The Titans were the first beings that lived on Earth, and they were basically, I don't know if they really created a whole lot. They experienced Earth more. Yeah.
Because they were more about emotions.
Yeah. So the Titans were extremely about emotion. And the story of the Titans is pretty distorted, but the Titans were actually in the middle of a war, and Earth was actually getting a lot of destruction that was happening. And they were in a war with the Pleiadians, and the Pleiadians were very angry with them because they had created a lot of mess on Earth, and they were doing things that weren't really good for Earth. And that's when that war happened, and that's when that version of Earth was pulled down into the third density by the same beings that were doing the things in the Orion Wars.
Um, so the polarity already existed that allowed the Earth to fall down.
Yeah, polarity was the learning like catalyst in this universe before that. So we've just graduated out of polarity.
Okay. And the polarity that governed the universe that was created by the same creator beings that created Earth and the universe.
Yeah. The original, very original first creator beings, they introduced polarity, the the opposites, the law of opposites. And they taught some things to some of their children that basically those children didn't, I'm trying to get the right words, but those children took polarity to a whole new level. And it caused a lot of chaos in the universe.
Um, who were the beings that dragged Earth down into 3D?
I don't like to mention their names because they're no longer here. However, if you look up a lot of the Egyptian gods, several of them are there. Yeah. So those were the pieces of them here on Earth.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was just a matter of being incarnated into polarity. And
Yeah.
was there a purpose to Earth descending into 3D?
Yeah, I think it wasn't brought immediately out of it because it was seen as another opportunity for learning, and it became the hardest place to learn. It's like taking children who are 5 or 6 into trigonometry class, basically, because you agree to go through this veil as you come into the earth plane, that existence, and earth itself is like holding space for all the students here. And it's been a very hard place to learn. And the veil is getting thinner now, but it's been really intense.
I feel like you're peeking at my question list.
Oh,
Why, why is there a veil, and why do we forget our true nature?
we forget our true nature so that we can really learn. And a lot of these lessons are really painful. They're big lessons like worthiness, abandonment, betrayal. And a lot of those we've been learning over the last 5 years, like finally coming to a culmination point with a lot of those lessons.
Um, so before before we made this video, you shared a chart with me, which is where I got all these questions. And so, in response to the Earth descending into 3D, um, there was a call put out to souls to come incarnate here. Do you want to talk about that at all?
So all the beings on, in this universe, they know that Earth is the hardest place to learn. And to come to Earth is to be quite brave. And many of us have been here thousands of times. And basically, what we've been here for is to continually try to elevate Earth back out of the third density. And we finally did it. We're out of third density now, but we're still watching the third density kind of disintegrate. So we're watching a lot of stuff fall right now.
Who put out the call?
The call came from the two original beings that came out, and a lot of us answered that call. I mean, it went all across the universe. And if you think about the universe, like it's heaven, and we never left heaven. We're still in it. We're just like a little boat floating around in it on Earth. Earth is our boat. Yeah.
What was the plan for those who answered the call?
The plan was that they continue to share their own energy. They have their own awakening and they break through. And that's where a lot of the great books come from, is from beings that broke through and woke up. So basically they pierced the veil and they got to see who they really were.
Okay. Um, I was looking at these questions, what we already answered. Um, you kind of answered this, but maybe you can talk more about it. Did the Earth stay on the path it was created for?
No, because it was created. I mean, the universe wanted to ascend before this happened, before Earth was pulled down. And according to the Pleiadians, it's about 300,000 years. And I get that that's, pretty accurate. If you feel into it with your earthly, ideas. So Earth basically has been in 3D for about 300,000 years. And a lot of different resets have happened throughout that time. But the first big one was the fall down in. And I think I lost the idea of the question.
Oh, it was with did the Earth stay on the path it was created for?
Oh, no, no, but she's back on it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we made the most of the journey it went on.
Hmm. We learned so much in that
Mhm.
time.
Um, who created humans?
So the same creator beings created humans. They created all the soul groups. And humans are the last soul group to be created in a large scale. So there are soul groups that are quite small. So one of them I would call like the unicorn soul group, like they're very small. The Phoenix soul group is very small. There are certain new soul groups that there's only a few of those beings. Yeah. But Earthlings or humans are the biggest, youngest soul group.
Are we related to Bigfoot?
We're all related to each other, if you think about it. And all the beings in general, I mean, there are some insectoid beings and things like that. But most of the beings have arms and legs and a head and a torso. And, we have a general look about us. And that is the same as Bigfoot. And Bigfoot is a fairly emotional elemental being that is also interdimensional.
Okay. Yeah, I think that question comes from because I've heard before people say, um, if these ETs hadn't come to Earth and changed the humanoids that were here, you'd still be like Bigfoot. So I think that's where that question comes from.
Oh, yeah.
Totally different.
We may go back to being hairier. I hope not.
Um, okay, so Earth is a being and it was made by the creator beings. This question is it just Earth who has a being since all the others dance around the Earth, not the sun? So that's kind of a conglomeration of questions about maybe flat Earth and different things.
Oh, I get that the sun is local, the moon is local, and now I guess we have a second moon that's local as well. As far as all the planets, they're beings too. And they have, think about astrology, they have certain energy and they contribute to what's going to happen on Earth because this is an organic game. And they have the energies that they're contributing, and that contributes to what we feel on Earth, and it contributes to when change is coming in. So Pluto's a being, and Pluto shakes it up, right? I think it's Chiron is a being, and he's a healer, and he kind of calms things down. So there's different, feelings. So when people say that astrology doesn't matter, it actually does because it shifts and changes right along with us.
Hmm. Yeah, because even if you think of the energy that kind of flows through creation or the universe, those little quarks or whatever, sub quarks, they go through the planets. If you think of them as material, they pick up that energy and then they bring it and kind of deposit it here. So it's, you can think of it in totally different ways too, all the
Yeah.
quantum physics stuff.
Hmm.
Um, I know you talked about this in other videos, but since we're talking about Earth being created, was it made flat or round or something else?
I get it's a toroidal field, and that's what I've always gotten. But I think that and this is also what I've received, is we were in a dome. We're not in a dome anymore. It's kind of an energetic frequency that we're in at the moment, but we were in a dome of ice. So the Truman Show and the Simpsons movie and Under the Dome TV show, those are actually good and they're disclosure. So we were in an ice dome that was made of sky ice, so very, very blue for a long time, and that has just gone. And now we're in a frequency type situation where the holographic sky is basically hung. If you want to think about it that way, that's how I see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, this question is from a Montessori teacher asking about the true history of Earth. Um, is the information we have about Earth's formation in the Hadean, Hadean era, and the arrival of water accurate? Where did water really come from?
Water is just consciousness, it's plasma. Um, I get no, it wasn't created in that way, but there's kind of hints of reality in that. What she talked about, the Hadean idea. Um, Water is plasma, everything is plasma, so everything is created with a different frequency. And we needed water. Our bodies were made to use water
Okay.
and
I
to
don't know
be
if this
water.
has I don't know if this has to do with Hadean anything, but there's stories I think in the Vedas about one of the gods puncturing the veil or the separation between earth and the sea of consciousness, and instead of flooding earth, this god had the water fall on its head and that became like the Ganges. I might be messing this up, I'm so sorry if anyone is like that's completely wrong. So I think maybe that was part of the question, where did water come from, like was it just created and put here on earth, or did it come in, because there's also the stories about the firmament keeping the waters above from coming in. There's so many
Yeah.
different
Well,
stories.
and I see the firmament as the waters above, but
Mhm.
thick. So thick plasma and basically like gelatin. So I don't see space as empty at all. I see space as a body. And plasma is what makes up the universe. It's what makes up God or source. It's all plasma. And everything that we are and that we see is plasma, but at a different frequency.
Mhm.
That's how I see it.
Okay. You kind of touched on this earlier, some of the creator beings waking up and writing important books. This question is, are any of the manuscripts true, like Urantia, Urantia book, or Agartha?
I get both are
Okay.
true. Urantia feels like a different timeline, like a parallel, and Agartha feels like it's here.
Isn't Agartha the name for Inner Earth?
I think it is one of the inner earth like cities or civilizations. I don't think it's the only one.
Yeah, maybe it's like through the North Pole entrance or something.
Yeah, that feels right. Like they had an entrance there. They probably have an entrance beyond Antarctica, which, I mean, Antarctica is totally not the same on the map as what I believe it is. I believe Antarctica surrounds us,
Mhm.
you know? Um, but yeah.
And maybe that's kind of like where the flat Earth, round Earth meet. So you're saying that Earth is like a toroidal field, and the part that we're on is just this smaller area that used to be under a dome. And if you only see that area, it seems flat, but we're just a smaller part on this more rounded figure.
Yeah, so I should probably get like a toroidal field, like a picture of one. But if you look at a toroidal field, it's going to look like this, like a donut kind of. And
Yeah.
we were like here, you know, and I can bring out those old pictures again. So let us know in the comments if you want to see my old pictures that were like a download from my higher self, and I'll bring those out again. Yeah.
Okay, so this question is about languages. They must be more than just means to communicate within certain populations, words, spelling, incantations, music, and everything that goes into it. So, if Earth was created for communication, what was the purpose of all these different languages? And is that like a symptom of falling into the 3D, is creating written language? So, like,
So Crystal knows.
sorry.
It's it's a form of division that was created. So think about these beings, these beings that wanted to have a playground where they could control others and distort because they felt distorted, they felt traumatized. So these beings were creating more and more and more trauma. And they were always thinking of ways to create more. So, division through religion or through language or through thinking that we live in different countries, all of that stuff was created to separate people and not allow them to communicate and really get to know each other.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, and you said before Earth was created in 5D, descended into 3D, and it was meant to stay in 5D, but it just, because of what happened, fell, and we're coming back out of that, or have come back out of that. Um, this question is, honey, can you tell us about our ancestry derived from the planet Maldek, Maldek, which now exists in our solar system as the asteroid belt, which I think was destroyed a long time ago in some horrific war?
I think that was the Lyran planet, if I remember. Like, I don't think that's the only place they lived. And I think they have a new space where they're at now. So the Lyran, like soul group, they're part of the ET soul group, but they're a portion of it. And they're here. Like there's Lyrans in bodies here. And they're part of your, like, you could be a Lyran being, and you have your higher self is a Lyran. So the Orion Wars would be a very painful experience to you, especially because that planet exploded. Now, when it exploded, the soul inside of it was kind of shattered. And it's a very painful, horrible thing when something like that happens. And I do think that that soul has since healed, but it will probably not be a planet for a while. I feel like it's taking a break from being planet.
Hmm. Um, when was Lemuria and Atlantis established?
They were established, was it before or after but so it was about the same time that the Anunnaki came. That's what I'm getting. The Sumerians were first.
Hmm.
So they were first. And Atlantis was kind of born out of the weird distortions that were going on there. And there were a lot of ETs that came in too. So beings were constantly coming in to try and correct the distortions. And Lemuria was like in another area on the planet and was very heart based. When exactly, how long ago? I mean, it feels like quite a long time ago, maybe 100,000 years. It goes along with processions of the equinoxes I'm actually getting. So it would have been the beginning. So that's more like 75, if you want to think in time. So it would have been the very beginning of, think about the procession of the equinoxes. Each one is about 25 to 26,000 years. And it would have been the first, like, part of that procession. And now we're going back. So it would have been the second world, I guess, is what a lot of the Native Americans would have called it.
Okay.
But when it was destroyed, it really caused a lot of chaos on Earth. Yep. So
So,
time doesn't really work like we
yeah.
want it to. So that's a really hard question. When did this happen or when? Because we have timeline shifts like all day long, every day. So I think around the time of the beginning of the precession of the equinoxes is the best that I can come up with that.
Mhm.
Um, and they were here in the same time period.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can get really confusing with like the multi-dimensionality of things, and
Yeah.
even like you said, going kind of like back in time and creating something so that something else didn't happen. So it's like, did that really happen, or all of it's happening? Um, so this question is about civilizations falling. Um, what other kinds of humanoids inhabited Earth before, since its inception in the universe? So there were the Titans were the first beings on Earth,
Yeah.
and then were the humans as we know them next.
Humans didn't come next. It feels like they were larger, you know? I mean, they were humanoid, but they wouldn't be what you look at today as a human being. They were bigger. And I think the Sumerians were actually bigger, I'm getting, and they were probably the most intact being. We can talk about the Titans for a minute here too, because the Titans started out as all male. So they were the very first beings actually created, and they were created as just the masculine. And that created a lot of chaos because it wasn't balanced. So the energies weren't balanced, which is part of the reason that they were at war in the first place. So after that war happened, then the feminine was brought in. So now Titans are divine masculine and divine feminine, and all the groups are that now. But the whole time thing doesn't really work because that was created in a parallel.
Mhm.
So,
I think you've said somewhere else, or maybe before we started, that Titans were created in a different place and then came to Earth.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, I got that their first planet wasn't Earth.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, and also it feels like Earth was almost not quite big enough for them, which also kind of contributed to the angst of being on Earth.
Yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned the Sumerians being bigger. You can definitely see that in the like stone carvings in the temples and things. They're much larger than the humans. They're like maybe at least 3 times bigger than the humans in the same carvings.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, how many Earths are there? Are the other worlds Earths? Does this have something to do with parallel Earths? Was Earth dreamed? Was it computed, or is it an organic computer simulation on someone's desktop?
It's an organic simulation. It's not on a desktop. It's more like a boat. So in the sea of consciousness, and it is controlled by the being that lives within it. I mean, it's her simulation ultimately. She gets lots of help, but ultimately it's Mother Earth, and that's why we call her Mother Earth. And as far as what was some of the other parts of the question?
How many Earths are there? Are the other worlds other Earths?
The other worlds are the ones that we would know about, would just be this part of the simulation. So it wouldn't be other Earths, that would be the planets that we're actually thinking about in astrology, and they're not other Earths. Now, Mother Earth is also a being, and she's a fractal of an oversoul. So if you think about the oversoul has tons of fractals, tons of parallels, and maybe hundreds versus what's on this pine cone. So Earth may be having experiences as a different kind of being with one of her fractals, but she may be having infinite experiences. And the infinite stuff is possibility. So, what are you putting out there as a possibility? Every time we make a decision, we create a parallel and we're infinite. So, we've got all these things going on all the time. So, if you chose to marry one person, but then, in a different scenario, you were like, well, I wish I had married this other person, then you'd have two things going on at the same time. And everything is a fractal within a fractal within a fractal. So we don't have, I don't think, unless your IQ, even if your IQ was like 200, I don't think you could really map it out properly. So it's better to just think of it in big generalities than to try and define it, because it doesn't matter to our life experience here either. whether we understand it completely or not.
Yeah, and I would think that the hardware of the human body isn't necessarily created to fully conceptualize all of creation.
No,
Um, so maybe with the fractals, this is how you could answer this question. I'm not sure. They're asking, or they're saying Tiamat is the mother dragon Earth. So are we living upon the remains of a dragon? Is that just a parallel? Because I've heard of that before too.
we're not on the remains of a dragon. I get no, but there were massive dragons here during the time of the Titans. And some of those dragon bodies are like a continent. So think of it that way. Did Mother Earth start out as a water planet only? You know? So some of those are mysteries that I'm not supposed to dig into, actually, I'm getting.
Okay.
However, there are beings here that are ancient and enormous. And some of them had to do with the creation of the planet. So they donated a body to that. Yeah, that's interesting too. That's a great question.
Yeah. Yeah, you've mentioned that Earth is a being and has a soul, but then it also has the physical body, which is just energy slowed down. Kind of like us, we have a soul, and our soul is instrumental in creating our physical body. So it's kind of like a parallel in itself.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's created out of light. So you have all these different frequencies. Like you have the hair frequency, you have the skin frequency, you have all the different frequencies that create different things. And some of them, like the eye, think about the eye, all the different components of the eye, each thing is a different frequency.
yeah,
Yeah.
I won't get into biochemistry.
Okay.
um, where was it? So you said before that there was the Titans, and then other beings were created, and then humans or the Sumerians came before humans? Because this question says, were there any original humans on Earth before the Anunnaki messed with our DNA? If there are, where are the original humans?
The Sumerians were basically the original. Yeah. So the Sumerians were bigger, and I think, some of the really ancient giant skeletons, some of them could be Sumerian. Some of them are just giants too. So the Anunnaki came, they distorted the DNA. And we have to remember that all of these beings were driven by the souls that were discontent, the souls that were traumatized and creating trauma. So they were using these beings as chess pieces to continue things. And so there were lots of different beings, there were lots of distortions. Atlantis was a place where a lot of DNA manipulation was happening. And that was the beginning of disconnecting some of humanity's DNA in a much bigger way.
Yeah. So the
Yeah,
Anunnaki came and changed the Sumerian humans.
they did. And that was before Atlantis, but I don't think they had reduced it down to two strands at that point. It feels like it was more like six. So it got even more dire with Atlantis. So Atlantis was a rough spot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, so this question is, and you've already answered dimension. It says, what dimension was human race in the original creation, 5D? Um, how did we travel in the beginning? Was the human race aware of the energy around them? If we had technology in the beginning, when was it hidden from us?
The last time it was hidden from us was back in just before the 1800s. So we had the mud flood, and I always get that that was like 1797. So that's when the technology was hidden this last time. But how far back does high tech go? All the way back. It goes
Back to
all the way back. Yeah, to the Sumerian times. And beyond that, even like the Titans had a lot of high tech themselves. It was more brutal high tech, you know, um, because like some of the mother trees were brought down in a single swipe
mm,
of, their great axe or whatever they were fighting with. It feels like a great axe. So some of those were made with tech as well. It wasn't primitive. All this primitive stuff that they talk about, I feel like that's one of the biggest psyops that's ever existed.
mm. Yeah, if we buy into it, then it keeps that advanced technology from us in a way.
Yeah.
So this question, was the inner Earth created at the same time as the Earth? I mean, I guess it would be all one thing, but were there inner Earth civilizations at the same time as outer
I
originally?
get yes, but they were very discombobulated and messed up as well when Earth fell. So they had to go through their own evolution. And so they're ETs that basically live in inner Earth and within the ocean. They had to go through their own third and fourth density experience. But because they're older beings, they were able to do it before humanity did it. So think about the Lord of the Rings. That was an inner Earth. They always said inner Earth. That was an inner Earth experience.
Mm.
That's how inner Earth came out of those densities. So inner Earth and the rest of Earth was more fifth density before this one spot became fifth density. So the rest of Earth was in the process of ascending the whole time. And that's where time gets really crazy because, we all have lived within this being that is Earth, but parts of it were ascended before we were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just picturing the Lord of the Rings where they had to kind of like work together and defeat the evil, which to me is just like disconnection from source.
Yeah.
So,
Disconnection from from themselves, because we all embody a piece of source within us. And also it was one ring to rule them all. Which ring would that be? Saturn, right? So Saturn is that's the energy that those beings were really pulling on to keep everything distorted and extremely physical and less etheric. Like that's how the veil was being distorted so bad. And I don't think Saturn, the planet, was too happy about it either.
that's true. The energy of Saturn itself could have been hijacked and used against its will. Because
Mhm.
I have heard in astrology, Saturn can kind of hold things back, but it might not be a bad thing. Like Jupiter's about expansion. You said Pluto's about like blowing things up. So
Yeah.
that's interesting to consider that their energy was taken and used maybe against their will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
And
it's
it
easy
is
to
a
be like, oh,
game.
Saturn's
Yeah, I don't think Saturn's bad.
bad. No.
I think ultimately none of it is really bad. It's just an experience we had. And yes, not fun, but ultimately a game for learning. but there was some sinister ideas about how that game happened. And basically, I mean, it would have been the most complicated chess game that you could imagine. Kind of like Battleship too, in some ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, this person just asked, describe early Earth. So I'm assuming that's like once the planet was created, like what did it look like?
Extremely lush, extremely green. When you think of the Garden of Eden, it was like that. And all different beings and species were contributing to Earth. And it was a great library because it was a great library of DNA. Like there was so much DNA, it was so diverse. And it was meant to be something really beautiful. And then it was turned into another battleground.
Mm.
So it really was a rough go. And I think the earth when it fell, um, it feels like sorry, I'm gonna pause because I cough.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to have a coughing fit. But think about Earth and where I kind of got lost a little bit actually. What was the question?
Describe early Earth.
Oh, yeah. So it was like the Garden of Eden. It was beautiful. I feel like there's a show that was out not that long ago, and it was about good versus evil, and it was kind of weird, and the guys are pretty big actors and kind of strange as well. Almost like a like fantasy show. But I'll try and think of it and put it below. But Earth was created so that people could basically come together in kind of a paradise and have conversations. Didn't work out that way. So we're
Yeah,
getting
like
back to that now.
they're trying to create a environment that would facilitate pleasant discourse versus going straight to war and destroying each
Yeah.
other. Um, okay. These aren't really questions, it's just a really big paragraph of statements, but I'll try to make questions out of them. They say, my question lies more of the 7 continents that are currently known as Earth. I know you just mentioned some beings that maybe the Earth was a water planet at the very beginning, and some beings basically sacrificed themselves to become continents. Um, was it always 7 continents after those beings decided to create land, or how did that work?
So I've been getting recently, and this really rings true from my higher self, is that the Pangea continent really is not very separated. It's slightly more separate than what the maps show, but it is not very separate. So those 7 continents, if you think about the number 7, that is the God number, but it's also the distorted God number. So it's the number that comes from G, which is in a certain secret society. The letter G is being used, and you may want to look that up. Um, the Free and the Masons, I'll just say. So basically, that letter was also distorted and used for negativity. And I think that they split it into 7. Also, I think that's a distortion. I don't think that's real. I think that it's all very close, and some of those continents are not separated.
Yeah, I remember you talking about some guys who walked from, was it like India to Mexico or something?
Yeah. And the lady, and I think this was disclosure, I think this was controlled information because it went viral, it went everywhere. And these two guys, one of them was from Pakistan, one from India, and there might have been a third that was from India as well. And they basically said, no, we just walked. And they knew that it was totally possible to just walk to Mexico and cross the border. And they were in brand new clothes. You know, they looked like they didn't really have a big, hard journey, but they just walked.
Yeah.
Yep.
At what point does the ice wall come into play? This question's about humanity being imprisoned inside the ice wall. Who did this to us and why? Was humanity seated inside the ice wall? What's outside the ice wall? So any of those questions.
So the dome was on the outside. So think of there was two rings. So if you think about here's the inside of the dome, okay? So that's the dome, and within that, I have to grab all my little pieces here, was the ice wall. So we've been inside of this ring, and the dome was made with this ring as the bottom. And basically, the really, I would say, negative, what we would call negative beings who were controlling humanity, they made the ice wall. And they used a lot of similar technology that was created the dome. The dome was created for, it was created over and over again for different reasons. And the main reason was that these beings couldn't control the whole earth. So they had access to a certain portion of earth for the behavior that they were doing. And they were kind of like addicted to earth and addicted to the 3D and the bad behavior that was going on. So, with the help of different beings or different ETs, multiple different ones, so this happened a multitude of times, that dome was installed, and sometimes it disintegrated and then it was reinstalled. So, it's been just done over and over again. And also timeline shifts have contributed to that as well. But the last one was it's all created with frequency. So every time they would try and get through it, they couldn't because it would just keep growing. And it was growing from the atmosphere. So they would try and tunnel through and couldn't get through. And if you listen to certain speeches and stuff, that was the glass ceiling that couldn't be broken through the dome.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the dome wasn't necessarily created for one, because I've heard before that it was put over the area to keep certain beings from being able to access all of Earth, but then I guess there's the inner ring that they keep us in, but then I feel like the under the dome is to keep them in.
Yeah. It was more to keep the whole game going. So it was like a game within a game, you know, a yucky game within a bigger game. And the bigger game was Tartaria still exists on the outside of where the dome was in just beautiful ways. ETs have lived there. The dragons were there. You know, like all of these beings have been living out there for a very long time. And it feels like it fluctuated between fourth density and fifth density until
Mm,
now. Now the entire Earth is completely fifth density.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah, this same person has a bunch of really good questions, which we will talk about Tartaria also at some point.
Yes.
they're saying, what does the new universe look like now that we're building it? Will we still have guides? Are there lands beyond now that we are in 5D? Um, kind of like what you were just talking about.
So there's so many lands beyond. And the Earth, we were on a quarter of the Earth. So that dome only encompassed one quarter of the top of Earth. And Earth has a bottom and a top and
Of
an
the
interior. So a lot of beings live within, and there was kind of chaos beings on the bottom and much, more like together, I'll just say evolved, more evolved beings on the top, except for where the dome was. So a lot of the chaos sometimes would actually come, they would breed chaos down at the bottom of Earth and then bring it up. And I think some of those beings contributed to the dome being nuts as well within the dome. Yeah.
um, was there ever a matriarchal society prevalent on Earth?
Yes. And that would have been the Lemurian. And I think actually Atlantis might have been started out as matriarchal, but it feels like it switched at some point, became patriarchal,
Okay.
and then exploded.
Uh,
Yeah.
what role does the Earth play in humanity's ascension?
The Earth is ascending as well because she was also pulled down and she's now popped up and she holds the energy for everything. Like if you go in your body and you take your shoes off and you take your body outside and you stand on the earth, you're instantly calmed. Your body is made out of Earth's matter. So we're in a synergistic relationship with Earth as a human being.
Some parasitical, some synergistic.
Yeah, some are not so nice. Yeah.
um, what diets did the first humans have on Earth?
They didn't eat nearly as much. They probably just ate fruit. Um, there's something else that they were eating, some sort of fiber as well. But it feels like it was mainly fruit that they were eating. So maybe they were utilizing the seeds as well,
Mm.
but not all the time because the plants really don't appreciate that.
Using the seeds,
Yeah.
you kind of
They want you
disrupting.
to distribute the seeds and procreate versus eating them.
Should I return the seed crackers I bought yesterday?
We're not quite back to that yet. It's part of our deprogramming. Yeah.
Um, is the Earth conscious of the role it plays in feeding humanity?
Yeah. Completely. She knows everything. Yeah.
Um, okay, so you have already talked about, so those are all the questions I have about creation and purpose, and now this is Earth School and game. You kind of talked about Earth being the hardest. This person says, as per Dolores Cannon, Earth is the hardest school. Why is it? Is it just because of the frequency that we were in and the polarity and
And the forgetting.
mm,
Yeah. So I think we should actually do this one in another video. So we're going to
okay.
bridge this into another video. But think about what if you knew that you were a piece of God when you were a child and you lived that way? That's the veil of forgetting. The veil of forgetting basically teaches you that you're small and that you don't know who you are. So you have to discover yourself in a lot of painful ways, usually. And that's what's going away. So
Yeah.
I think that's a great segue to the next show. Yeah.
Okay.
And we want to hear your questions about that in under this show. So let us know what you think about that. And let us know like what the different parts of history are that you want to know, because we will be keeping records of all the questions and stuff so that we can eventually answer as many as possible. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for doing that, Crystal.
No problem. It's really good
Beautiful.
information.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks, all of you guys. And we hope that you have a beautiful day and that this starts to answer some of the questions. Bye, everybody.
Bye.